It's Friday, the 16th of February, and a number of things are going on in the world. So glad to have that in the reports and all along those lines. Going to be telling y'all quite a bit about those in a second or so. But first, we're going to have a announcement about our lovely bookstore, and I'll get some light on the situation as well. So we're going to have a announcement about the lovely bookstore, and then I'll put some light on the situation and tell you what's going on in the world. As I was saying, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and we're going to tell you about them and let you know what's going on and how things are transpiring. One of the things that is going on in the world is that one of Mr. Putin's arch critics has passed away in prison. So, this is something that a lot of people are talking about, the death of Alexei Navalny, who is apparently one of the harsh critics there in Russia. And it seems like there is some global outrage that is going on as he passed away in a Arctic prison and all along those lines. So we'll see as this plays out, as it plays out in the world and what folks think about this and if it has any consequences for Mr. Putin. And of course, there is still the raging war in Israel, and 5 patients die as oxygen runs out in a Gaza hospital seized by Israeli forces, according to health officials. So, definitely, that is something that folks are paying attention to as well. And as I've reported before, it looks like it is official. Greece becomes the first country to legalize same sex marriage. So, Greece just legalized that kind of relationship, and other Orthodox countries may be following suit, but we'll find out if that is the case or not the case. And apparently, problems are mounting for the United Kingdom Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as his party suffers heavy defeats in those elections in that area. So, definitely, it looks like Keir Starmer has beat both Blair and Thatcher. So, definitely, it looks like the Britain's Conservative Party has lost 2 seats in its latest blow to Rishi Sunak. So that is something else that we are seeing as well. And satellite photos show Egypt building a Gaza wall as Israel's Rafah push looms. So Egypt is building a new walled buffer zone more than 2 miles wide on the Gaza border. So definitely that is something else that is taking place in the Middle East. And it looks like the IDF has carried out its largest exercises on the northern border to boost readiness for a Hezbollah war. So definitely a lot of things are taking place in the Middle East, and it looks like strikes between Israel and Hezbollah are escalating, and Israel has eliminated the Hezbollah senior commander as terror group warns it will pay the price. So definitely there's a lot of rhetoric and talk back and forth and all in that space. And Ukraine's Zelensky is heading to Berlin, Paris to drum up wartime aid. So he is definitely held Ukraine's defense deals with Germany and France. And it looks like he's trying to get some more support from those areas as well. So definitely it looks like this will be something else that'll be going on in the conversations. And speaking of conversations, it looks like that there have been conversations between Biden and Bibi. So definitely it looks like Biden and Netanyahu have been having conversations on Rafah, and the prime minister has vowed to resist a Palestinian state. So definitely that is something that is going on as they were on their second call this week. So I guess Biden is trying to show some leadership in that part of the world. So we'll see if this all plays out or it doesn't play out, and definitely in that way. And as I said, coming back to Ukraine is Russian soldiers to reinforce the embattled eastern town of Avdiivka. So definitely that is coming into the news as well. And the White House warns Russia closing in on taking the Ukrainian town with U.S. help on hold. So definitely there's pushes to try to get some more U.S. help as well. And if you're wondering what are the things that are going on in the Asian world, Singapore is planning a $3.7 billion fund for clean energy transition. So they're definitely pledging to support households and companies as costs rise. So Singapore's budget has something for everyone, according to some of the reports, amid rising living costs. And there are some folks that are wondering if an election might be near in that area as well. So definitely it looks like there's a lot of things that are taking place in the Asian front as well. As a matter of fact, it looks like the Indian farmers are protesting again, and kites battle drones as farmers take on police during the India protests. So definitely it looks like there is a lot of protests going on in that way as well. And India's BRICS partners calls Israel's war on Gaza cowardice, and Brazil's Lula slams Israel on the Gaza war and is claiming that the UN failed. So Brazil's Lula is aiming to bolster his geopolitical ties with Africa. So definitely a lot of people are trying to figure out how they can get involved in Africa as well. And of course, we do know that the Munich Security Conference is going on, and the U.S. is to confront Trump-driven political turmoil at that particular conference. So who knows what will happen in that conference that is got various European allies in conversation as well. And the Senegal courts in Senegal has ruled the government's postponement of the February 25th presidential poll was illegal. So definitely it looks like the courts there have blocked President Macky Sall's bid to delay the polls. So I guess they might still be having their elections in February. I know they've been trying to push it to the fall and all in that kind of way. We'll get to some other news items, and I'm sure that some of our other folks will have some things to say as well. But let me bring in my esteemed panelists and see what they've got going on in their world and all in that way. So we're going to bring in Rick Rosner, and I've also got Sasha Starr with me as well, but we've got both of them here. And like I said, there's a number of things that are taking place, and I see that I've got one of the founders of the network here as well. So there's a number of things going on, including those infamous trials and all along those lines, because it looks like Georgia DA Fani Willis will not testify for the second day on improper affair with Nathan Wade. So won't have to testify in that particular case, as that is the second day of the Trump case misconduct hearings going on in Georgia. So definitely we have a lot of people that are talking about that. And House GOP has hit Penny Pritzker and two others with subpoenas in the Harvard anti-Semitism probe. So they're looking to go after some more folks on campus and all in that way. So they have definitely summoned the Harvard brass, and we'll see how Harvard responds to this. There have definitely been a number of folks that have lost their jobs over these rulings and over these investigations. So we'll find out if more are about to lose their job in some of these elite institutions. And there's a ruling expected in Trump's $370 million New York fraud trial. So definitely Trump might have to go out there and find some money as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that way. And a Las Vegas politician has been accused of killing journalists could take stand at a trial amid a bribery investigation. So there's bribery investigations even there in Las Vegas. You know, Las Vegas has got some interesting criminal history and all in that way. But yeah, there's a lot going on, including the FBI informant. And Raskin has called on the GOP to end the Biden impeachment inquiry after that indictment of the FBI informant. So, like I said, both camps are in all kinds of political turmoil, and we'll see how this all plays out with the elections. Any thoughts?
So, the judge in the 300, he says the judgment will be delivered today. So, sometime in the next 7 hours. I know Sasha and I are looking forward to that.
Well, I'm gonna go.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Nick?
Oh, you can't hear Sasha.
Sasha,
you got to turn on your mic.
And that you called it an improper relationship between Fani Willis and her.
That's kind of a sideshow more than anything. It has nothing to do with the merits of the case. It happens to do with her appointing a boyfriend as the special prosecutor and receiving funds, and has nothing to do with the merits of the case. I do have some predictions on that. She and her prosecutor will be removed from the case, and they're going to put in new people. I also do have some predictions on the Trump judgment, whatever it might be, it will be reversed on appeal. Now that's really stretching, but I don't see that to be a summary judgment. And the real problem with that is that originally there was no trial. You have to imagine his fraud, there was no trial. So all this hankering that they're doing is just based on damages. So when did the trial take place? There wasn't any. What happened was, and I've been down this rabbit hole before, the prosecuting attorney sends in affidavits with a motion for summary judgment. Then you put affidavits in, motion against summary judgment, and the judge rules in favor of the prosecution. Okay, but did he violate the legal standard? No judicial issue as to law and fact. And even worse, light most favorable to the non-moving party. Well, no, he didn't. So I think that thing, whatever happens, is going to be overturned on appeal. Now, his hard problem, which we don't look at, is, believe it or not, Stormy Daniels. That's going to be a tough case for him. But he seems to like shrug his shoulders at that. But that has some really strong implications. So he's good. Well, like I said, I looked at his portfolio of litigation. He has winners and losers, but he's not a good poker player. He holds his losing cards.
Well, and Sasha has explained as he's going to explain right now. Go ahead.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now. Sasha.
Excellent. Okay, I reloaded. Okay, Nick, you are right to a certain extent, except that to have an appeal, Trump will have to post $500 million on top of $100 million for Jay Carroll. And if someone think that Trump has abundance of money and he has trillions of dollars available to him, unless his friend Putin will help him, and Putin is very busy with killing his opponents, as you know, I don't see how he's going to post 5, 6, maybe even more millions of dollars. I just don't see. This man is not as rich as you may believe so.
Nick, you're muted.
Nick's muted now.
Okay.
So
I've been down this rabbit hole before also, Sasha, with appellate bonds, the call. Once you lose a case like that, you do not need to you're going to need to put up about 10%. And then
how is that work? How does it work? 10%? What are you talking?
Bondsman will put.
Bondsman didn't want to put $5 million. He had to put his own cash.
Here's the problem, Sasha. It's going to be like 30 million. Okay, it's going to be a big chunk of change to the bondsman. Now, here's how the bondsman work. They'll put up the rest. Okay,
No,
but
they will not touch.
What'll happen is that 30 million is down the toilet. It's going to end up in their paquito, no matter what happens. So if you win, they keep the 30 million. You lose, they keep the 30 million. So it's a very heavy loan, let's put it that way. And they figure, well, of course, the litigation will take place within the appellate take place.
There's one thing, if you notice, Trump
somebody's got to come up with
Trump
hundreds of millions.
stopped doing his rallies. He is strapped for cash. His national association, Republican association, they got 8 million cash left. Nothing more. And no donors. I mean, big donors, they don't touch Trump. They don't give him.
no, they don't touch him. But
He's not even trying to raise any money from them because he knows that they will laugh at him. He is damaged goods.
But speaking of which, Sasha, it looks like that Trump is blaming the New York GOP candidate, who we know lost, for not supporting him enough and everything. So he's saying that the reason they lost is because they didn't support him and get his allies to back him. And on the flip side of that, AOC is worrying that progressives will be going toward the more conservative view on immigration rights, especially after Sosi won that special election. I think he might be a little bit on the more conservative side, even among the Democrats and everything. So
that's what Clinton did in the mid 90s. Clinton was suffering low approval numbers, and he tacked towards the middle. He went from liberal to more conservative, and it saved his presidency and got him reelected.
Yeah, but what Sasha's bringing up is also a real problem for Trump, which is one reason he's in the courtroom all the time. He's cash strapped, and everybody knows. I mean, everybody knows. Is today a good time to go out and put loans against your real estate? No, because hard money lending is going to be very expensive. And even if he got conventional loans, it's going to be very expensive for him.
Nick, but there is no real estate to speak of. All his real estate will be arrested after today's announcement.
Yeah.
He can come up with, he gets about 10 million a month in donations from his millions of suckers, little, small donors, mom and pop, suckers. But it's bad for Republicans in general, because that money was donated to help him and other Republicans get elected. And if he's just spending it all on bonds, that's going to hurt the party.
Is there any possibility, really?
Has anybody seen yesterday all day on CNN proceedings in Georgia? I saw it all day. I spent all day watching it. Okay, I will not tell you how brilliant was Fani Willis and how she made clowns of all these proceedings against her. That's a different story. But I want to tell you that she had a couple of lawyers representing her, and Trump's team, they had 6 or 7 clowns who were doing all the stupid allegations about when did you started to have a relationship. Oh no, romantic relationship. Now what means romantic relationship? Is when you have first intercourse, or when you have first to get out together? What constitutes the start of romantic relationship?
Yeah, when was the first time you held hands? They asked her.
Okay.
They ask her that.
I see. And what happened if they have first intercourse, but either of them didn't have orgasm? Would you qualify it as the romantic beginning of romantic relationship? Perhaps not. What's happened when one of them never had orgasm? Is it still a romantic relationship or what? It's a clown's game. It was pathetic.
The case. I mean, see, this is a complete sideshow. This is the reason if Trump gets back in, the circus comes to town. This whole thing has zero to do with the merits of the case. It's a complete sideshow, and it's really an ethical dilemma more than it has anything to do with a legal dilemma. That's the reason he goes, I'm not on trial.
But Nick, speaking of sideshows, and this has been going on for a few days, particularly after the DOJ's report and everything, is there any possibility in your mind or anybody's mind on this panel that, because we're talking about Trump's legal problems, but there are folks, including some attorney generals, that are asking Kamala Harris to invoke the 25th Amendment and to remove Biden from office. So is there any possibility that this is going to happen before November? And if that's the case, will Trump be running against Kamala?
First of all, wait. Let's not move so fast on this 25th Amendment. This goes back to the Constitution not being filled out with regulations, okay? Show me in the Constitution, Mark. Show me anybody in the panel. Show anybody listening where it says the vice president has the right to invoke the 25th Amendment. It doesn't. So the thing is, all this talk is just garbage, There's nothing in the Constitution that says, oh, the vice president can invoke the 25th Amendment.
Or maybe Speaker of the House.
Or the Speaker of the House. Hey, I'll tell you what. I'm a state secretary of state in Maine, so I'm going to have a committee, and we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment. Come on, there is procedure that needs to take place, and this isn't one of them. The great thing, it certainly gives a lot of table talk for commentators and of course social media to make up laws that don't exist and try to enforce it.
Nick, speaking of table talk,
as David Walker says, Mark, it has slim to none. And Slim just left the room.
But speaking of people that had this, and maybe he borrowed this from Trump and everything. But there is a New York City man that is being charged with falsely claiming ownership of a New York hotel using a loophole that allowed him to live there free for 5 years. So maybe he's a friend
Uh,
of Trump or something along those lines. But he had this hotel that he claimed legal ownership of there in Manhattan, which we know is a very pricey area and everything. But now he has been found that there was a legal loophole and he has been discovered. So it looks like he might have to move out of his fancy digs and
Yeah, okay.
everything, and maybe even face some legal consequences. So
Okay.
they are now saying he's going to face criminal charges because he lived there for 5 years during the pandemic rent free.
Okay. First of all, there is in the law what they call adverse possession, and this is a weird thing that exists in almost every state. That if you sat on somebody's property for like 21 years and they never kicked your butt out, you could claim ownership of the property. Okay. Going into a hotel like I think it's the Wellington or one of them in New York that got mothballed.
Horrible.
And the Wellington got mothballed. It used to be a fairly good historic hotel. You can't sit there and say, "Hey, I'm going to sit there for 5 years and then claim ownership of the hotel." Now this person obviously didn't go to law school, doesn't understand adverse possession, and yes, does have some problems with quote living rent free inside whatever hotel that they're at. But well, I believe things like this get pushed out the door, and you're not going to hear it other than the media. In other words, there's going to be no even. See, the problem is, Mark, even if you put a claim against somebody like that, you're not going to collect it. So nobody's really interested in that case. So what we're going to do is,
speaking of,
But meanwhile, the guy got $150,000 worth of free rent, getting to live there for 5 years.
Yeah. But the thing is, see, some of those places in New York right now, like if you go to the Wellington, it's completely mothballed. I mean, and it's been mothballed for years. How they do it, I have no idea, because it's in a great location. Somebody's paying a lot in real estate taxes. I assume it's in bankruptcy, but it's really hard to get.
But Nick,
Very close to Carnegie Hall, by the way.
This is very close to Carnegie Hall.
Right.
But speaking of which, Nick and Sasha, really quickly, there's another group that is facing similar charges, and they are in trouble. And we're going to love this one because we've talked about them quite a bit on the network and everything. But there is another lawsuit that is going after the NRA, and we've talked about gun rolls and everything. But apparently private jets and trips to the Bahamas are all in the trial that is going on about the with Wayne LaPierre. So he's caught his hands in the cookie jar and everything. So the lawsuit against the NRA is going to the jury after final argument. So maybe the NRA is going to run into its own problems because they've been apparently going to trips to the Bahamas, having private jets, and a number of other things while they've been fighting against those folks that want heavier gun regulations.
Yeah, well, it's probably a disgorgement suit because I understand the NRA went into bankruptcy. But yeah, you're right, Sasha. The Wellington's close to Carnegie Hall, and what people didn't know, they had some really great suites there. Because the hotel rooms sucked, but the suites were really good. But since they mothballed,
totally agree with you.
I go to the Warwick. The Warwick is right down the street, and they have really good suites at the Warwick. And
I never stayed at Warwick, but I stayed in Wellington in suite. It's great. See, the
you
problem is,
stayed at the Wellington?
you know what's the problem with Wellington is, and why it's full all the time. If you go on a site like hotel.com, for example, New York, the Manhattan, first thing you see a bunch of hotels, and the Wellington has the cheapest rates for common rooms. So obviously people who want to save $5 compared to other hotels, they're gravitating to Wellington. But they don't understand that they're getting horrible little room. And you go to suite, you really have a great location, great room, and you have a good time therefore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so
I hear what y'all are saying. Coming back to politics for a second, there is a conservative that was out of Montana and everything, and apparently he has ended his endorsement because of the fact that Mr. Trump endorsed his opponent. So Montana conservative firebrand, that's the way folks have been describing him, Matt Rosendale, ended his Senate campaign weeks later after Trump endorsed his rival and everything. So how is this playing out where I guess if you are a Trump fan or a Trump endorsed candidate, maybe some people are feeling that you will stand a better chance of winning. I don't know that I agree with that. But
this works on both sides. There are some candidates who don't want Trump's endorsement if they're in purple states, but in the New York special election, the winning candidate didn't want Biden to show up and endorse him.
Yeah, you have both very unfavorable presidents. But what really gets me, Mark, it happens here in North Carolina. You get somebody who grows up in a farm, who totes a gun, who hangs around with other rednecks. And then all of a sudden they jump up and they say, hey, life is good for me. I'm qualified to be, a congressman or a senator. And I'm going like, dude, you have not gotten outside your county limits, and you think you know everything about the world. And I'm serious. And they run all the time. It drives me crazy. And
no, but it's, Nick, hold on a second. Wasn't the original? Because this is where I might push back against you a little bit, Nick, and everything. Because I recall, and this is where some people are upset with politicians and everything. Many of the politicians now are coming out of, and I know that this is your class and everything. Quite a few of them are lawyers and things along those lines. But as I recall, the original Congress from way back in the days when we created this great country and everything were what you just described. They were farmers, they were common men, and that is what a lot of people wish we would go back to and everything, where you would have people that have
I want to go back to my life expectancy age 26. Come on.
Yeah, back then, for every person alive back then, there are 110 Americans now. The country had 3 million people. It was much easier to govern, even though you had.
I totally agree with Rick. You're looking at a totally different demographic. You're looking at a totally different world. You're looking at a world today where you can be in India in like less than 24 hours. You can be halfway across the world. Back then, you're not going to India. It would be a life-changing experience on a one-way ticket. So
but are you saying that it is better to have more lawyers as running the country, or can we have a diversity of opinions and a diversity of jobs?
Mark. I mean, the 17th century mentality, that's the reason I hate the Second Amendment. It was written by old guffers in the 17th century, and we're sitting there worshiping a lot like they're Jesus Christ or Moses who came down from heaven and created a document that we can't move around. Of course not. This is the last time we're like in the 21st century or something. And, we're in the age of the internet. We're age of airplanes. Give me a break. Yeah, Rick.
So, but you end up electing a bunch of hacks because of opportunity cost. Like Bill Gates would never run for office because it would cost him, in the time it would take for him to serve in Congress, he could make billions of dollars. A lot of competent people don't want to mess around with elected office, especially the way the job functions today, where you spend 30 hours a week on the phone begging for more money so you can run again.
Well, why would you want to run for elective office when you can buy the elective office, Rick? I mean, the thing is, through their PACs, they control the senators and the congressmen anyway. So the congressman, every time I listen to a senator or congressman say something, no matter what it is, like, hey, we got to send more aid to this or do what, I want to know who bought that statement, seriously. And the thing is, because of the lack of disclosures, you don't know how much was paid to his PAC to get up and say, Russia is developing nuclear weapons in outer space. Well, let me tell you something. There's a check that was written to his PAC for him to get up and say that. But we don't know because there's no transparency as to how the money got there for him to make that statement. But the people in America have to realize, and they don't know this, that the PACs control Congress. They control Congress through the money. So Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, they all know, I don't want to run for office. I'm just going to buy the person who wins. Why would you want to bother?
And I read a statistic that said that for every $1 million that a billionaire contributes to a PAC or to whatever politicians, they get back about $5 million in tax breaks.
Or they get direct subsidies. And this is the thing that upsets me with Tesla, because somebody paid off the senators and congressmen to put charging stations all over the country at the expense of the American taxpayer. And it was somebody from Tesla who did it, and the transparency is next to zero. And same with the CHIPS Act. Yeah, we need more chips in the United States. Well, which company? Was it Intel? Was it NVIDIA that actually paid Congress to say, let's create a bill so we give loans or grants, free money to chip companies using taxpayers' dollars. So all of us here paid to make NVIDIA and make Intel and make Micron Technologies great again over this thing that, China's going to take over the chip industry if we don't do it. Give me a break. They've taken over the ship industry. They've taken over the furniture industry. They've taken over every industry. Why is all of a sudden the chip industry important? The only reason it's important today, somebody got paid off in Washington, D.C. That's how you
Well,
get.
speaking of which, and maybe Sasha will be talking about this with
right,
Jonathan. Yeah, maybe Sasha will be talking about this with Jonathan later on and everything. But there is a couple of astrophysicists, but definitely they have been reporting that they are skeptical of the danger of Russian anti-satellite capability and all along those lines. So I know that Jonathan on the Ukraine-Russia-China show oftentimes talks about our Space Force, but apparently there are a couple of United States astrophysicists that are very skeptical of Russia's ability to have the like-minded thing, even though they claim that they've got it. But I was wondering your thoughts, and should they be right in this notion that they are not as developed as people think they are? Because there's definitely some.
If the physicists have done the math, and I trust their math, then yeah, they're right, because space is big, the velocities are huge. And, if you're trying to use a nuclear device to blow some satellites or out of orbit or disable them with EMP, you got to be fairly precise, and you can't take out a bunch of satellites all at once because space is big.
But it's actually a great idea if you look at it from the Russian standpoint. If you want to destroy America, destroy their communication capabilities, or you really put a hinge on our nuclear deterrence if you knock out our communication capabilities. But I think a lot of that also has to do, the timing of this comes out just as the package to Ukraine comes out. So there's some money that was moved that we don't see that made this person stand up and say, we got to be scared of Russia now. However, it may be a real threat too.
But nukes aren't the way to knock satellites out. That's overkill. You want like smart rocks. All you have to do is get some piece of junk crashing into the satellite at
Right. There are easier ways to do it. They don't need nuclear weapons to knock out satellites, but knocking out communication capabilities and Star Wars is something that the United States really does have to address, because Russia, as we well know, is not our friend. And what happened to Navalny? I heard he got sick and he died.
He was taking a walk and he fell over and then dead.
I understand he died of what they call natural causes. Would that be correct?
Well, let's put it this way. Obviously, he was killed by Putin and his team. And he spent considerable time in almost unlivable conditions, almost next to...
Sasha, I have a question. How much do you have to pay a Russian guard to put something in this guy's food to kill him? I mean, the Russian policemen don't make much money to begin with. And all of a sudden, a ton of rubles ends up in his account somewhere in Switzerland. And all he has to do is drop something into the guy's food to kill him.
The last famous guy to die was Prigozhin, the guy who led the coup for 48 hours against Putin.
But he was blown out of the air.
His airplane, accidentally lost a wing in midair from an explosion.
What a bloody surprise. Isn't it a surprise if you're an enemy of Putin? Bad things just happen to you. Accidents take place. I mean, talk about the mafia, the Russian mafia. Oh, you can be very unlucky if you go against, Putin, because all of a sudden your luck could change. And it certainly did change for Navalny. I really don't know why he went back there. Kasparov was right. It's dangerous. Kasparov's staying in the United States. He's not going back to Russia. He wants to live at least another couple more years. But Navalny going back was probably a fatal error. And think about it. Russia controls through two things, the two motivators of people, fear and greed. Putin knows how to use it. Fear. Accidents happen to my enemies. Greed. Good things happen to my friends.
Speaking about Russian, there is very interesting issues developing with the FBI informant Smirnov. So what's happened is he talked to FBI and explained that, in fact, Biden was involved in this little Ukrainian gas company Burisma and allegedly paid $5 million or maybe more and so on. And Republicans developed a very significant theory of Biden's impeachment based on this story and so on and on and on. All of a sudden yesterday, Smirnov was charged with the false documentation which he fabricated. There is no involvement of Biden of any kind. And now he's gonna be tried criminally. And not only that, he will have to disclose to his bank accounts who paid him for this false information. And we'll see where the money coming from.
Yeah, and there was a representative, I think it was Stefanik from New York. She goes, from a very credible source, we know that they're a credible source from the FBI. We know that the Bidens were involved in illegal transactions. And of course, she got on stage and said that. And obviously the problem was the source wasn't credible. And what she said, because her source wasn't credible, was a complete lie.
There's
And,
another.
I'm waiting for her apology. I'm waiting. Oh, wait.
Yeah, she's not going to apologize.
There's been another debunking. There's a movie, a documentary called 2000 Mules that was produced by Dinesh D'Souza, a Republican convicted felon propagandist, who the movie purported to prove that there was massive election cheating by Democrats dumping ballots into collection boxes. And it was based on some really hinky, like, cell phone. They said they tracked people's cell phones and they kept coming really close to collection boxes. And that's all BS. And they've had to show their evidence now in court, and they've had to admit that they have no evidence that there was cheating.
Surprise! And the sad part, Rick, there's still people believe election fraud took place. And as an attorney, I go, great, where's the evidence?
I have a TV show with one of those guys, like Lance, and I'll challenge him the next time we do a show, and he'll have a whole new set of excuses.
You'll have reasons that it's not the case and everything.
You can't just shut your mouth off. But the same people believe that election fraud took place, believes vaccines don't work, and half of them believe the earth is flat, and half of them believe that the Martians came and colonized the earth. Okay, so there's a group of loonies. Now, I don't mind having a group of loonies out there because the world's so big. The real problem is the percentages are high. In other words, it wouldn't be bad if they said, hey, you got 4% loonies. But there are about 40% of these people actually believe in every piece of trash that comes through social media. They eat it up faster than, my dog eats dog food. And it's just absolutely amazing. And without thinking at all what's really going on. And they're easily deceived. And then they start, and what I want is Donald Trump's mailing list, okay, where they actually donate to this guy's campaign. And he takes around, turns the money, uses it to pay for his legal fees.
With social media, loonies can reinforce each other, hundreds of times a day with messaging. Back in the 60s, if you wanted to be a loony in the John Birch Society, you had to do your business through the U.S. mail or make phone calls, long distance phone calls, which were expensive. People, younger than us don't realize that, like, if you're in Minnesota, you want to call California, it might be 45 cents a minute back when that's be like $5 a minute today.
No, they're very much the case and everything.
Costs money.
Hey, Nick, one of your favorite places and everything is in the news, and it's in the news because, there's been this whole conversation around LGBTQI rights. I just mentioned that Greece is now going to allow same-sex marriages, but they're in Utah. Utah's Board of Education voted to censure one of its members and called for her resignation on this past Wednesday after she appeared to suggest that a teenage girl was transgender on social media, speaking of social media, and it turned out that was false. So Natalie Klein, the censored board member, posted a flyer for a Salt Lake City high school basketball team on Facebook last week, suggestively writing girls basketball. And although the post was later deleted, and it revealed that the girl was not trans. So I guess he was thinking this girl had a little bit of masculine features and everything, and she was thinking that the girl was trans, and now she's facing all kinds of consequences because they were like, then the board had to usher these deep apologies for those harmed by the conduct. So I guess if you're going to make these allegations, you need to make sure that the allegations are true.
Get your facts straight first, counselor, before you make allegations.
I've got an endorsement in that area. It's a high school comedy that's Fight Club for girls, basically. It's called Bottoms. My wife and I watched it a couple nights ago. It's on Prime now, and it's a couple of The Girl from the Bear, if you watch that show. And anyway, two girls want to get girlfriends because they're gay, and they do it by starting a fight club. And it's a comedy and it's very messed up, and it's a lot of fun. I laughed all the way through it.
Well, apparently the parents and Miss Klein went back and forth because Klein apologized for the basketball post last week while simultaneously defended herself, saying that the girl featured in the flyer does have a larger build like her parents, and the parents wrote back, Miss Klein did the very thing we teach our children not to do in terms of bullying, mocking, and spreading rumors and gossip about others. Miss Klein did the very thing we teach our children not to do. She blasted social media without fact checking, which ultimately led to a barrage of hateful and despicable comments.
Yeah, it's sad because these are kids, you know. And the thing is, I've seen a lot of kids, and then sometimes I go, "Is that kid male or female?" Seriously, and I don't know, you know. And so when you don't know, what you do is you keep your mouth shut. It's one of the good times to keep your mouth shut because you're going like, you don't want to make an error and hurt the kids' feelings, because when they're younger, sometimes they just aren't developed one way or the other, and you just go okay, and you just pass on it at that point in time. But yeah, I would probably want to stay out of that rat hole, Mark, at least at this point in time. There's other rat holes that are just, you know, perfectly clear that we can spend time with. And I think I do want to spend some time with Trump's fraud, because I do agree with Sasha. This guy is a real estate hack. Okay. Real estate guys always are out of cash. I mean, when Trump dies, he'll be lucky to find 50 cents in his pocket because everything is invested in real estate, or he bought some garbage with it, and the guy's just completely no cash. When the judgment comes down, this guy's got to raise some cash. He's going to be pretty well strapped, which is one reason.
Nick, I told you what he's doing.
He'd rather go to jail.
He used 2 days ago, Valentine's Day. He used Valentine's Day as a tool to raise money. He literally sent out a letter thanking his wife for being a loving person and everything, the current wife. And then in the letter, he said, please send me money. So he used the...
you know what? Trump has a lot of tools, but very little money. And nothing will change. Now, interesting development, though, is happening in Georgia right now. Yesterday was a absolutely fiery, fantastic testimony of Fani Willis. And what's happened is she was required to testify. She was issued subpoena, and she fighted subpoena, saying that she doesn't need to testify, and so on. And as the day progressed, it's closer to the end of the day, all of a sudden she appears in a courtroom, and she's saying she's no longer fighting subpoena, and she is ready to testify. It was complete unexpected development, because her lawyer says, we are fighting subpoena. How come you want to testify? Yes, okay, no longer fighting any subpoenas. I'm ready to testify right now. Okay, so she was put on a stand. She had absolutely knockout testimony. She quashes all these allegations about improper this or that. It's just done. It's history. But so the judge says, okay, we'll continue testimony tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Because the other team had to complete their questioning, and her team would complete or at least start their testimony, their questions. Now discoveries and so on. And what's happened in the morning today, that the other side, the defendants of Trump, they said that they have no more questions to Fani Willis because they are just scared of her, because she was saying, you are liars, you are this or that. They were just scared to be against her. So now the judge asking her lawyer, you can continue, or you can start discovery of your client. She said, I have no need for further questions to Mr. Willis, Fani Willis. And what's happened is that everybody stopped because all the further witnesses, they were all late. They were not even in the room, expecting that her cross-examination will take at least an hour, maybe 2 or so on. And all of a sudden, the courtroom is empty. The judge went out because there was nothing to do.
But
So
didn't she
the
use
Trump
Bill Clinton
doesn't
defense?
pay his lawyers, so he only gets crappy lawyers now because lawyers have learned they're not going to get paid. And Fannie Willis like looks at his defense team and goes, "Well, these guys are a bunch of idiots, and if I just show up and tell the truth, they'll look ridiculous."
But speaking of
Well,
looking
she
ridiculous,
used
isn't
the
everybody in a
Bill
state
Clinton
of
defense. She
disarray in
used
the
Bill Clinton
RNC
defense.
because
She goes,
we don't have they don't have any-
I did not have sex with that man. That's the Bill Clinton defense.
But
I
Nick,
did not have sex with
Nick,
that man.
Nick, Nick,
I
isn't
did
part of
not
the
have
problem?
sex with that man.
Isn't part of the problem that they are in disarray, the RNC and the Republicans? Because you just mentioned earlier about McDaniels and the fact that McDaniels is going to be replaced possibly by Laura Trump, who is definitely the part of the Trump family and all along those lines, and the gentleman from North Carolina. And I'm seeing that in one of the swing states, they have placed Pete Hoekstra as the Michigan chair after they had a power struggle, because apparently for a while they had Christina Carambo that was running the that particular area, and of course that is a swing state, so you can't even get your leadership in the swing state.
Democrats are cheering for Laura Trump because Laura Trump has said that she will spend all the party's money on getting Donald Trump reelected, which will starve these hundreds of other candidates across the country. You want money from the national RNC? Nope, sorry, we spent that money on Trump. You're gonna
be complete collapse of Republican Party, which is great for America, because once this Trump will spend the rest of his life in jail penniless, then Republicans will have to build a real party. They have to go from the scratch. They have to identify what they stand for, what are their goals, try to raise money, and so on. They have to start from the scratch. There is no way out of this.
Except they haven't. The Republicans have only won the popular vote in a presidential election once since 1992. They constantly get beaten at the polls, and they managed to survive because of the Electoral College, because of gerrymandering, but they never learn their lesson. They never come up with policies that would make them more attractive to voters.
Well, I mean, part of it is even what they did in Michigan, which is I just pointed out. Because
I mean, the thing is, it's a very resilient party. They thought, when Nixon went down, the Republican parties would never come back again, but they did. And here's the reason they're resilient. It's because the Democratic Party is so bad. If it wasn't for the Democrats, the Republicans wouldn't exist. You got Joe Biden, who's spending money like there's no tomorrow. He's sending the country hugely into debt. And they're going to push this message, $34 trillion in debt and growing. They're also going to push the message that Medicare is going bankrupt this decade. They're not doing anything about it. They're going to push the message on the border. They're going to push all the message of the slop of the Democratic Party, and the Republicans are going to show up. It will not be easy. If you think that the Democrats are going to walk in and defeat Trump, even if he is convicted by Stormy Daniels, okay, which I think is his biggest problem, at least politically, that's not the case. He may be sitting when we're talking.
Nick, I was going to give you a perfect example of what the Democrats are doing, because I just got this flyer, and you will notice then everything. It is the current North Carolina Senator Mike Woodard and everything. But as I put it up there, you'll notice what he is advertising. He is advertising that, and I understand from Steve and others that they are saying that he is in trouble. But you'll notice that the flyer says that Mike Woodard passed Medicaid expansion, and if you look on the back, he's actually got this going on, that he what he did in that. But he's trying to use the Medicaid campaign as part of his tool and everything of why he should be elected. And as even Steve said, he is in trouble.
Medicaid goes to people that cannot afford the outrageous health insurance that exists in the United States of America. And he was right to actually take it, because if he didn't take it, we don't get the money. So definitely the right decision was to actually send North Carolinians Medicaid. Yeah, right.
Right, Nick, you're right about it. It'll be tough to win the election. We're a highly divided and evenly divided country. The last time any presidential candidate got 53% or more of the vote was in 1988, the first George Bush. And
you have a weak candidate. This guy, Joe Biden. You couldn't get anybody weaker. Somebody who's 80 years old. He couldn't win an election to save his life until he's like in his late 70s. Think about it. Okay, now he's suffering possibly from dementia. And
he's not. He's got a. That's. I mean, he misspeaks, but he's always misspoken. But in 4 of the past 8 presidential elections, the winning candidate didn't even get 50% of the vote.
Yeah, right. And it may not happen again today. But I'm not going to say, as bad as Trump is, you got to find a candidate that's weaker. And the Democrats were great. They found one. It's called Joe Biden.
Nick,
he would not get rid of his vice grip over the Democratic Party. All Joe had to do is say, this is my last term. Thank you guys very much. I'm out of here. And open up the field to qualified candidates. But he would not do that.
Well, it's too late for that now.
Ginsburg was also guilty. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She should have stepped down and allowed Obama to appoint a Supreme Court justice. But she was so into her power being on the Supreme Court, she didn't do that. And that was a big mistake.
Yes, but if Biden was going to do that, he needed to do it 3 years ago. It's too late now.
I know, Rick. It's a big mistake. So Biden, if Trump gets elected, first thing he should do is shake Joe Biden's head and say, thank you for running against me.
Nick, there is one thing. First of all, Biden already announced several months ago that if the nomination of Republicans will be anybody but Trump, he will step down. He said that. However, because it appears to be right now that Trump will be a nominee, and Trump is the only one that Biden will beat, and easily, by the way. So unless Nikki will be nominee, but maybe Trump will end up in jail indeed. Their possibilities are increasing. I agree with you, Nick, on that. And there is yet a new theory which I've heard yesterday, and I said it on the World Politics program, that because a women's life expectancy much greater than men, so it could be that in certain circumstances, Biden will step down, and there are 2 ladies who will replace, well, at least one of them will replace him. It's, guess what? Nancy Pelosi is one, and Hillary Clinton is another one.
but all right, if you run the actuarial statistics on Biden, a guy his age is expected to live another 8.2 years. So the odds that he dies, if he gets a second term, that he dies before completing the term are fairly low, especially since he's skinny. He seems to be in good shape. No major medical issues. He's probably got another 10 years or more of life.
Yeah, so, the thing is, dementia is the real problem.
But he's not demented. If you listen to him, he makes mistakes, but so does everybody. And generally, he's in command of the facts. And he misspeaks sometimes. So does Trump. So do a lot of people. And, he's not demented.
And he's going after a couple of interesting cases.
Biden now died in the Iraq war. I mean, the thing is, this guy is losing it. And it's not going to get better. It's not
but he's doing some interesting things.
I disagree.
Now you got to happen.
I completely disagree. Biden isn't losing it. That's it. It's a false narrative. However, that narrative is
it's a true narrative.
He's not.
Toby, I'm sorry.
It's not.
When you're in your 80s, you're not getting better, my friend.
Nick, do you realize that we actually have congressmen in their 80s currently that are serving, that people have voted in? So to say that this man is losing, it is a fact. We also have lawyers. We have judges. We have individuals. Right now, what you are actually saying, Nick, is that no one above 80 should do anything because they have dementia. That is an incorrect and a false statement. There are tons of things. There are, and here's another thing. Here's another thing. You have more mistakes made. You have more mistakes made by Trump than you do by Biden. It's a fact. More mistakes made by. Yes, it is a fact. The man confused Nancy Pelosi with Nikki Haley. The man has said Kofifi and all this other crap. But the thing is that we buy into this whole craptastic narrative that somehow Biden is super old. Trump is also old. Trump has made many more mistakes than Biden. But what's selling is the fact that Biden is old. The thing is, Trump honestly is now trying to buy into the old thing because right now he's going out on campaigns claiming literally, oh, well, I really meant to mess up Obama. And that's what I did. I said it because I found a new word that I meant to do it on my own. I was doing all. No, that is what Trump is doing it. And he's selling that BS. Because
if you're old, if you're not as sharp as you used to be, because you're in your 80s or late 70s, you rely on your cabinet you work with your cabinet. And Biden has 47 years of experience holding national level political office, 20 more years than anybody who's ever run for president before. And so he's got a cabinet he can work with. When Trump appoints a cabinet, he appoints a bunch of scammers and idiots. And anybody competent runs away after a couple months.
And family members.
He has a revolving cabinet as opposed to a cabinet. But going back to Toby's fault, his problem. This is the reason you're going to lose the election, Toby, because progressives like you drink your own Kool-Aid. You don't see the fact there is caviar and champagne down the street, which the Republicans are drinking. And the reason
so Nick, we buying Trump.
That is one of the dumbest.
I hate to say it. When you get older, buddy. When you get older, buddy,
that is the dumbest comment that you have made. You are saying that the 3-year difference makes Trump in his youth.
You know,
the 3-year difference.
Well,
how old is Trump?
Every year,
Trump is 77. Trump has made more mistakes verbally. Trump has made more mistakes than any president or any person out there.
Trump's made all kinds of mistakes, like the role of NATO and everything.
Despite making mistakes, he is outright lying 32 times every day. So you have to always qualify what is a lie and what is a mistake.
It's
not easy.
We had a president with actual dementia holding office. The last few years of Reagan, he was suffering from actual early dementia.
By the way, same with Woodrow Wilson. I know this is not unusual that we have.
Wilson had a stroke. Yeah, his wife secretly ran the country for like the last 18 months of his administration.
Yeah, so it's not unusual that we'll elect somebody that's in compos mentis. But the thing is, for people like Toby to be blind and say, "Oh, at 83,
the problem is
the facilities are going to increase."
Incorrect, Nick. Incorrect. The thing is, okay, here's an analogy. Here's an analogy that was perfect.
Toby.
This is an analogy that was perfect that somebody put out there. They said Alfred, Bruce Wayne's Alfred is old. He's a really old dude. But you don't get rid of Alfred to hire the Joker.
Good point. And everything. Trying to get ready to get out of the show and all along those lines. But that was a good point and a very valid point because we've only got about another.
Mark, I can show you guys actually the really scariest thing that's out there right now.
We've got to get from this show, so we'll have to save that for next.
You got two. Okay.
Got a minute and a half and everything. So definitely we can save that for Monday's show, and because we're getting ready to go to Russia, Ukraine, and China. And by the way, Biden did have another incident today where he was actually showing his ire and showing that he can be a leader, because apparently he was suing the state of Tennessee for allegedly discriminating against HIV positive sex workers. So yeah, he was even getting
pissed off Biden. I like pissed off Biden. There are reports of how much cussing he does in private. And I think if some of that was leaked, it wouldn't, because people think Trump is much more vigorous than Biden because Trump does that weird, washing my ears dance at, but I want to see Biden being salty.
Well, we'll have to see him being salty. Maybe we'll see that next week. We'll see Toby's video next week as well. So we'll be back with World Edition. Right now, we're going to go to Russia, Ukraine, and China. But another great conversation, and we'll be back on Monday with more great conversation.